Good evening, everyone. Let us start the session by chanting Namo Tassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavatu Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavatu Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavatu Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. All right. Let's turn to page number 246, please. Guide to para 8. All right. So I must apologize. I could not speak to the high authorities as I promised last time. I have it with me. I will speak to the high authorities within the course of this week. But let's continue with the class for today. Yeah. For a schematic representation of the classifications of material phenomena, also in regard to their modes of origin and formation into groups, see table 6.3 at the end of this chapter. I think we finished all that, didn't we? All right. The four modes of origin, the origination of matter, Rupa, Samutthana. The four modes of origin. Material phenomena originate in four ways: from karma, consciousness, temperature, and nutriment. Karma as a mode of origin. Therein, the 25 kinds of wholesome and unwholesome karma pertaining to the sense sphere and the 5 material sphere produce in one's internal continuum volitionally conditioned material phenomena originating from karma, moment by moment, beginning with rebirth linking. Again, therein, the 25 kinds of wholesome and unwholesome karma pertaining to the sense sphere and the material sense sphere, fine material sphere, produce in one's internal continuum volitionally conditioned material phenomena originating from karma, moment by moment, beginning with rebirth linking. Right? Beginning with rebirth linking. Guide to para 10. Material phenomena originating from karma. Karma here refers to volition. In past wholesome and unwholesome states, wholesome and unwholesome states of consciousness. Right? The 25 kinds of karma that produce material phenomena are the volitions of the 12 unwholesome chittas, the 8 great wholesome chittas, and the 5 fine material wholesome chittas. Why not the arupa? Because of course arupa does not produce, right? That's a no-brainer. That is also the reason by which when Venerable Mahankadavala's Dassana Thero went on the media and represented an image of the Arupa Vachara Bhumi having a subtle form. Venerable Abhidhamma, now when Abhidhamma Thero went on media, he himself actually barged into the Bauddha Nalika. So heroic of him, and said, and demanded to go on television. And in that interview, which is still on YouTube, this is the reason he says, right? This was a foundation of the reason he says that Arupa cannot in any way have a form, subtle or otherwise, right? Because Kammaja Rupas do not arise, right? Kammaja Rupas do not have the potency to give rise to a Rupa, because the volition not to say, Arupa Chetana is much, much more powerful than a Rupa Chetana, right? If we take in terms of power. But this is not a conversation about power. This is a conversation of need, tanha, right? And within the Arupa, or in the course of developing Arupa, there is no craving towards a material form, because that is exactly what leads to Arupa attainment. Hence, no sort of form is produced when a rebirth linking occurs founded on a Arupa consciousness. The volitions of a wholesome immaterial sphere, chittas, generate rebirth in the immaterial sphere plane, and thus cannot produce material phenomena originating from karma. Karma produces material phenomena at each sub-moment among the three sub-moments of consciousness. Among the three sub-moments of consciousness, karma produces material phenomena at each sub-moment. Each sub-moment among the three sub-moments of consciousness: arising, presence, and dissolution. Upada, Titi, Bhanga. Starting with the arising sub-moment of rebirth linking consciousness, it continues to do so throughout the course of existence up to the 17th mind moment preceding the death consciousness, right? Preceding the death consciousness, right? This is also clearly mentioned within the Chittaviti, which the Chittaviti process, because it is only at the moment, actually in the chapter on Asubha Bhavana, right? It clearly denotes the stages of a corpse. The first starting stage of that corpse or a dead body is the moment the consciousness disappears, or rather moves on, right, from this body, meaning at the moment of Uchcheda. Uchcheda from this birth, or this body, to the next, the cutting off, right? That is the moment the decay of the body starts, meaning the dissolution of Rupa, right? The dissolution of Rupa, because it doesn't give rise to any more Rupas, right? Any more new Rupas. Now, karma produces material phenomena at each sub-moment among the three sub-moments of consciousness: arising, presence, and dissolution. Starting with the arising sub-moment of rebirth linking consciousness, it continues to do so throughout the course of existence up to the 17th mind moment preceding the death consciousness. 18 kinds of material phenomena are produced. 18 kinds of material phenomena are produced by karma. The 8 inseparables. Now I suggest that you have these categories of inseparables, the different groups, on a sheet of paper next to you as we go on, right? Because you're going to see these terms again and again and again And it would be good to sort of have a sheet of paper documenting what these different parts are. So you can highlight it at this moment and later on copy it down to another sheet of paper, right? Because this will pop into question as we move on in this chapter.
Bhante, can you repeat that again? What you say is the Rupa cease to generate at the last, as soon as you move into the last chittaviti, last, or the dying chittaviti. Is it?
New rupas do not arise.
Okay, new rupas do not arise.
New rupas do not arise.
And then at the end of or one before the Chuti Chitta,
Yes.
it says that's last.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Then comes into question, what I would then question is, which we will actually go into later on, is now during the different motions of a corpse, the corpse changes.
Yeah.
It becomes bloated, and we know what happens to a corpse, right? This is the, what's the word to use? The disruption of the rupas that are present at that moment of death, right? At that moment of death, meaning now in the earlier part of the chapter, we discussed about how Patavi, Apo, Tejo, Vayo works together in a way to keep all of these materials to a certain structure. Now, when the Jivita Indriya is not present anymore because of the lapse of consciousness, consciousness being not present, what happens is the rupas that are then present up to that 17th moment are there. That is the last production. After that starts the disruption of that said rupa skandha. Owing to the disruption created, brought about by the imbalance of element, because Jivita Indriya is not there to keep everything together. Now starts the pus leaking, the bloating, the deformation, and all of that. That is, that rupa is now being disrupted by those elements itself, bringing about its own demise, right? Bringing about its own demise. Now, we know that energy cannot be destroyed, right? That isn't that the foundation of physics? But energy goes through a way of conversion. We convert energy, right? This too is that same conversion process happening through nature, according to the Abhidhamma. Now that energy is forming other things. For example, if it goes into the earth, the way that energy then carries on in the earth, right? So that is the disruption of those rupas already existing, right? Already existing. Okay, we will be going into it later on. Yes, Damsiri.
Yeah. When the
Damsiri,
when when you get a dead body,
yeah,
In that one, what you have is you don't have Shuddhashtaka instead minus Shuddhashtaka minus
Yeah.
Jivitendriya and nutrient. Is it? Or nutrient is still there?
Interesting question. The, that's question so difficult. Cut me a break. It's been a long. Yeah. The nutrients, those processes of the Suddhastakas are present, but now it is again the nutrients won't just die away, right?
Okay, all right,
But it
okay.
goes through a process of demise.
Yeah,
It goes to a process of demise. Because remember, just because the consciousness is no more doesn't mean because the nutrients are not wholly based on consciousness,
yes, yes, yes.
right? They
Okay, yeah,
go through, so the Suddhastakas are there, but they are in decline.
yes,
The process of rotting has begun
yeah,
due to the imbalance of the elements,
okay.
right?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Right. It 18 kinds of material phenomena are produced by karma. The 8 inseparables in the 9 groups produced by karma, the 5 sensitivities, the 2 sex faculties, the life faculty, the heart base, and space. Of these 9 kinds, the 8 faculties and the heart base arise exclusively from karma. Exclusively from karma. The other 9 kinds arise from karma only when they occur in the karma-born groups. Otherwise, they originate from the other causes. From the other causes, right? From the other causes. Again, of these 9 kinds, the 8 faculties and the heart base arise exclusively from karma. The other 9 kinds arise from karma only when they occur in the karma-born groups. Otherwise, they originate from other causes. Let's see. Para 11. Consciousness as a mode of origination, or as a mode of origin. The 75 types of consciousness, excluding the immaterial sphere resultants and 2 sets of 5-fold sense consciousness, produce material phenomena originating from consciousness, beginning with the first moment of life continuum, but they do so only at the moment of arising. Only at the moment. Now that is a point to highlight right there, right? Only at the moment of arising do they produce, right? Do they produce? Therein, the governors of absorption, therein, the governors of absorption also uphold the bodily postures, but the determining consciousness, governors of sense sphere and direct knowledge consciousness produce also intimation, both bodily and vocal. Herein, the 13 governors accompanied by joy produce smiling too, right? Produce smiling too. Let us go back to the end of the last page. The 75 types of consciousness, excluding material sense sphere resultants, and 2 sets of fivefold sense consciousness. Remember, Chakku, Sotagana, Jibba, Kaya, the 2 sets of that, right? Produce material phenomena originating from consciousness. So, Chitta the Rupa. Produce Chitta the Rupa. Beginning with the first moment of the life continuum, but they do so only at the moment of arising. Remember earlier we spoke about arising, possessing, and dissolution. This specific set of consciousness only produces material phenomena Chitta-Rupa at the first moment, which is the moment of arising, right? At the moment of arising, right? Is that clear? Right? Only at the moment of arising. Therein, the governors of absorption, jhana, also uphold the bodily postures. Now, when you're in a jhana, right? When you're in a jhana, you do not move about, isn't it? Right? And also remember, was it Venerable Sariputta who was struck on the head whilst meditating while in jhana? It was Venerable Sariputta, right? His body did not sort of, experience that attack, or he did not get thrown about by the attack at the moment of being struck. Why? Because of the bodily postures being maintained by the powerful jhana consciousness, right? In his case, it was nirodha. Remember, in his case, it was not just a jhana, it was nirodha samapatti, right? Nirodha samapatti. Now, even meditators who do not have jhanas, but are in deep states of samadhi, will note that your body doesn't move about, right? Nor are you thinking about the body or controlling the body in any way. But if you have a sense of restlessness, if you have a sense of sluggishness or sleepy drowsiness arising during the time of meditation, now your body will start to move about, right? So we too, even if we do not have jhana, the samadhi, the consciousness, has a sense of maintaining the posture of the body, right? Maintaining the posture of the body. I hope, I think most of you have experienced this, right? That your body has not moved, that you are not slouching or anything of the sort, right? All right. Therein, the governors of absorption also uphold the bodily postures, right? But the determining consciousness, governors of sense sphere and direct knowledge consciousness produce also bodily and vocal intimation. Therein, 13 governors accompanied by joy produce smiling too, right? Therein, 13 governors accompanied by joy produce smiling too. Now, don't take this as this is not smile producing. Huh? This is not smile producing, this is smiling, right? Now, when in the meditation centers, or even maybe if you've been on a retreat or something and people are in deep states of samadhi, you will notice that their faces become so blissfully sort of light in a certain way, Not that they're giggling or, not anything of the sort, but you have that sense of lightness of the face, and even with a very slight smile sometimes, right? Now, that is what they're talking about in this case here, right? The maintenance, the producing of such phenomena which gives about that image at that moment, right? Here speaking about those 13 jhavanas accompanied by joy. Accompanied by joy. Is that clear? Is that understood? Right? Let's go through it again. Therein, the jhavanas of absorption also uphold the bodily pleasures, postures, that is clear. But the determining consciousness, jhavanas, determining consciousness, jhavanas of sense sphere, and direct knowledge consciousness produce also intimation, right? Produce also intimation. Herein, the 13 jhavanas accompanied by joy produce smiling. Let's see. Guide to para 11. Material phenomena originating from consciousness. Chitta samutthana rupa. Material phenomena produced by consciousness spring up starting from the arising moment of the first bhavanga chitta immediately after rebirth consciousness. Again, material phenomena produced by consciousness, chitta rupa, spring up starting from the arising moment of the first bhavanga chitta immediately after the rebirth consciousness. Immediately after the rebirth consciousness. The rebirth consciousness does not produce consciousness born matter. The rebirth consciousness does not produce consciousness born matter. I remember someone last class asked a question with regards to this part, isn't it? Right? Why it does not? Simply, it does not. It does not. Why? Because it's not its function. The process of rebirth linking is to produce the rebirth, not to continue the rebirth. Now, this part arises in support and in continuing the rebirth process, which is in the next birth, isn't it? Right? The person who's selling you salad leaves, right? That person will only sell you the salad leaf. He's not going to cut it for you, right? Now, the cutting and the preparation process is a function of another person who buys the salad. In the same manner, right? In the same manner, it is a different function, a different responsibility, right? Yes, Damsiri, I feel like you want to say something over there.
Bhante, I have a little sort of puzzle here.
Of course you do.
Now, when you say that, when you say that your first material phenomena originate the utpada of the bhavanga, right? Then that means you don't have vastu rupa to support your rebirth linking consciousness.
Yes. Yes. The Vastu Rupa is not there. But also remember this.
Yeah.
Just like in the process of consciousness,
Yeah.
Rupa too has a maturation period.
Okay.
Remember, when a consciousness arises, it must go through a chittakkana, one mind movement for it to mature enough to produce an effect.
Yeah.
Right? Hence why we have bhavanga, chalana, bhavanga, upacheda.
Yes.
Right? In a similar manner, there is a maturation time for matter.
Okay.
there's a maturation time for matter which arises, which has to go, where matter has to go through it for it to now produce or come into something which is noticeable and substantial.
Yeah, okay.
Right? A ripening of soul. Right? Now, let's go through it, Dhamma. We are going to get more data for that.
Okay, yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. Now, where did we stop? Okay. Regardless, material phenomena produced by consciousness spring up starting from the arising moment of the first bhavanga chitta immediately after the rebirth consciousness. Immediately after the rebirth consciousness. The rebirth consciousness does not produce consciousness-born matter. Since at the moment of rebirth, the matter that arises is born of karma. Since at the moment of rebirth, the matter that arises is born of karma. And because this consciousness is a newcomer, and because this consciousness is a newcomer to the new existence, the tenfold sense consciousness lacks the power to produce matter, and the four immaterial resultants cannot do so since they arise only in the immaterial realms. According to the commentators, mental phenomena are strongest at the moment of arising. Material phenomena are strongest at the moment of presence. Material phenomena strongest at the moment of present. Consciousness, therefore, produces matter only at the arising moment when it is strongest, not at the moments of presence and dissolution. Not at the moment of presence and dissolution. Right? The governors of absorption, etc. The maintenance or upholding of the bodily postures is a function of states of consciousness. The 26 governors of absorption perform this function minimally. The 26 governors of absorption perform this function minimally by maintaining the body in a sitting, standing, or lying posture. The other 32 chittas, right? Now, by maintaining the body in sitting, standing, or lying posture. Now, even at the moment of deep sleep, we do not move, right? When a person who has a sense of samadhi goes to sleep, that person finds that he or she, the person, would sleep and wake up in the same posture, right? In the same posture. So if your partners move around or are annoying to sleep with, right? Get them hooked on meditation. It will solve your problem. It will solve your problem, right? By maintaining the body in sitting, standing, or lying posture. The other 32 chittas mentioned, the determining consciousness, sensory governors, and direct knowledge chittas, not only uphold the postures, but also activate bodily and vocal intonation. Activate bodily and vocal intonation. What do we have to say about that? How do you think it activates bodily or vocal intimation? The other 32 chittas mentioned, the determining, sensuous javanas, and direct knowledge chittas not only uphold the postures, but also activate bodily and vocal intimation. Any examples that you could think of?
Is it the sort of light smile you get uh, when you are in deep sleep sometime? Uh, Is it the similar sort of, once you have a sort of good meditation and go to sleep, and then you, even in your body, you still have a, a slight smile on your face,
Mm,
right?
mm, mm. Uh,
Oh,
a clearer, that could be, a clear example would be in certain moments when a person's vipassana is strong but samadhi is not strong, a person might experience, or other people around him or her might experience, uh, that the meditator's body is moving, but the meditator does not know.
mm,
This could be twitching, this could be sounds, this could be movement of the arms and legs, right? We've spoken about things of this sort before. That is because of, now, governors of absorption do not do that. Getting to absorption, you might do that. Or when the samadhi is weak but vipassana is strong, that might happen, right?
mm,
That might happen. So then what do we tell them to do? We tell them to come out of vipassana, go into samatha, train the samadhi, come back to vipassana. To have a supporting samadhi to direct this mind, this body activity in a certain way. We don't hope for it, but it becomes in that way because of the supporting samadhi to the vipassana, right? So when a person meditates and does not have that standard samadhi whilst doing vipassana, that person might experience these things. Now there was a instance, there was this Manu, a nun, who was meditating at Dhammakuta in Kandy, right? And after the session, after a 10-day session, usually everyone gets together and they do the metta session, and you have the breaking of the silence, isn't it? Isn't it, Geeta? Huh? You've been on a couple retreats recently. Huh? You have the breaking of the silence. Huh? And during this breaking of silence, this Manu, this nun, started speaking in tongues, right? She started speaking in tongues right after the meditation, right? Right after, in the sense, this was very much right after. She, right? That is an example of how these Jamana streams produce vocal and bodily intimation. It doesn't happen often, but can happen, right? But can happen. This was not that the Manu was possessed in any way or anything of the sort. This was this bodily and vocal intimation produced by these different processes of Javana as opposed to the absorption processes of Javana, right? As opposed to the absorption processes of Javana. Now, this often within Goenka meditators, this is something which is often seen, right? This is because now in the Goenka technique, we go through samatha very quickly and go into vipassana. The samatha is to calm the person down, which acts as a motion of passage into vipassana, but the samatha will not be as strong compared to a person who might practice for longer periods of time. It's only 3 days of samatha, right? Hence, when the person being within that environment, which is usually a very calming, supportive environment, with the 3 days of samatha, the person also goes into deep states of vipassana afterwards. But because the vipassana is not supported by the samatha, with the exact level of samatha, you have these bodily and vocal intimations arising, right? We often see that with the Goenka. This is in no way to cast any blame or harm over the Goenka technique, not at all. This is what happens when that balance of samadhi and vipassana are not present together, right? Damsi, did you try to say something?
No.
Oh, yeah, this is when the balance of samatha and vipassana are not present, right? This is also translated in this sort of a manner. When going into vipassana is quite gross, right? Let me tell you why I use that word. If you are, a person who is making a knife, right? You can't just cut a piece of steel and then turn it into a knife. If it's a finely made knife, of course, which goes for a couple £100 or whatnot. You have to, of course, you cut the steel and you go in with harder sandpaper into the softer, right? In order to get that smooth luxury finish, right? To make it sharp, right? The vipassana is gross in a way, it really scratches into the crux of your being, the crux of your Atma, right? Now, that is the reason why, with regards to metta meditation, asubha meditation, ahara patikula sanya, did I say marananusati? No, marananusati. These meditations are very coarse meditations. People often, even with metta, when you truly set yourself to sit down and properly with a genuine heart, when you're in the practice, metta is quite difficult. That's when you really discover how much of a hateful person you are. Right? It is not at all an easy practice. Of course, sitting on a chair and reading gathas on metta bhavana is easy, right? Thinking of a flower, thinking about a monk that you love, or thinking about your son or daughter who's sick is rather easy in comparison to really with the authentic, genuine mind going into metta, right? Because this really scratches. Haven't you experienced when you do metta, there are so much, your mind becomes so puzzled sometimes with confusion in a certain way, the restlessness arising from why am I doing metta towards this person? These question marks, these vitarkas arising. Why? Because it's really scratching against, right? It's really scratching against those sort of insecurities, rather the defilements, defilements that you have, the hate that you have towards a certain person, even if it is subtle. Ahara patikula sanya, we remember, we know people, I know people personally, when we read the Vishuddhimagga, it says, a person must practice ahara patikula sanya, which is the foulness of food, in a way that A mother, and remember the story of the mother and father having been in the desert, having to eat their own child to sustain themselves, right? It says to consume with, now see, even when I say it, it's quite odd, isn't it? Right? It's quite odd. Right? Why? Because it's such, on one part, of course, that example is quite coarse, but on another part, food is such an integral part of our lives, which we actually enjoy, right? Which we actually enjoy. When we start scratching at it, it causes a certain eruption. Those eruptions are the bodily and vocal intimations created by the Javana processes other than the absorption Javana process creation. What is created by the absorption Javana process, right? People shiver, people shake, they start rocking forward and back. You find these sort of states that you would say, that they feel delirious in a certain way, right? And they don't even know. Those are the sorts of bodily and vocal intimations that are spoken of here. Mana? Yes, Mana?
Bhante,
Yeah.
something is not confusing me. Now we are talking about the maintenance of bodily postures during samadhi and vipassana.
Yes.
And in the second part of the paragraph, it says, the other 32 chittas not only uphold postures. 32, it includes sense sphere javanas, 29, and in that 12 unwholesome chittas also included. Is that all right?
Yes, that is all right. That is all right. Now, the second part of what I have just interpreted is another interpretation to why the shakiness appears, right? Why the shakiness appears and all of those motions appear, right? The akusala and the rest of the sense sphere javanas and all of that, it can be this result, right? Or it can be something else. It can be on the meditation route, it can be taken, or it can be taken on another route conditioned by those unwholesome factors, right? So it has to be taken in a case-by-case scenario, right? On a case by, let's read it again, right? Material phenomena, that is, yes, let's read it from the top. Material phenomena produced by consciousness spring up from the arising moment of the first bhavanga chitta immediately after the rebirth consciousness. The rebirth consciousness does not produce conscious born matter, since at the moment of rebirth, the matter that arises is born of karma. And because this consciousness is a newcomer to the new existence, the tenfold sense consciousness lacks the power to produce matter, and the four immaterial resultants cannot do so, since they only arise in the immaterial realms. According to commentators, material phenomena are stronger at the moment of arising, material phenomena are strongest at the moment of presence. Consciousness therefore produces matter only at the moment of its arising moment, when it is strongest, not at the moments of presence and dissolution, the javanas of absorption. The maintenance or upholding of the bodily postures is a function of the states of consciousness. The 26 javanas of absorption, perform this function minimally by maintaining the body in a sitting, standing, or lying posture. The other 32 chittas mentioned, the determining consciousness, the sense sphere javanas, and direct knowledge chittas, not only uphold the postures, but also activate bodily and vocal intimation, right? Bodily and vocal intimation. Let's look at the javanas. The other 32 chittas mentioned the determining consciousness, right? The determining consciousness. What is the determining consciousness?
That is sense sphere 29 and Vottapana and Abhidhamma.
Yes, right? The determining consciousness, right? And sense sphere javanas, which consciousness produce or conduct the sense sphere javana processes? Javana krutya karana. Mala?
Bhante, we have a bad internet connection.
Oh,
Mala got disconnected. Yeah.
oh yes, Mala is she, I was wondering why she was like stunned. All right. Okay.
Or Mala has gone to immaterial sphere.
Materials. Okay, Damse, do you want to answer then? What are the sense sphere consciousness that perform the Javana function, please? Damsiri, you're muted. Yes.
I asked the question.
Yes. So what are the sense sphere
I'm listening to you, Auntie. The 32 are, first one is the determining, then two direct knowledge, and the 29 sense sphere javanas.
What are the sense sphere javanas?
32, they're talking. Sense sphere javanas are unwholesome 12, then the wholesome sense sobana, wholesome 8 and functional 8, and smiling hasitupada.
Yes. Okay, remember? Do you all remember the rest? Right? If you look at, a good way to remember, what consciousnesses produce karma, right? Produce or enact a action, hence meaning there's a process. So 12 unwholesome, right? Determining, smile producing, sobana, and one more.
The 29 are 12 unwholesome.
Yes.
Then sobana, wholesome 8, functional 8.
Yeah.
And then that is 28 with smiling 1.
Okay. Right. Those are the sense sphere. යම් කිසි කෘත්‍යයක් ඒ consciousness එකකින් හේතුවෙන් සිද්ධ වෙනවා නම් ඒ ජවන process එකක්. Right? Now, even though, for example, the smile producing is a ahetuka, smile producing does a act, isn't it? Right? So that's a good way to remember. Anything within the sense sphere that performs a motion, a function of motion, is classified as or can be understood to be a sense sphere, a consciousness which performs a javana function. Okay? Understood? Okay. So, okay. So when we come into Rupa, you can't forget the consciousness part, huh? Right?
Bhante,
Yeah.
there's another thing I want to ask. Why did they get direct knowledge 2 into this one? Because it's not in the 89.
Yeah.
But now in this one, they have got the direct knowledge 2, Abhijna included. Why is that? It's not included in the 89.
So because we are talking about Rupa.
So
Think about it, Mala. Why? What about the others? What do you all think? Miri, any idea, Miri? Oh, Chamri.
But it's not a consciousness.
Lakshman. Oh, yes, Miri.
No, I was just thinking, Bhante. I thought the sensual Javana ones were 12 unwholesome, 8 wholesome, and the sublime 9. Have I got that wrong?
What about the smile producing? Now, because it is the sense sphere, right? Right, because it is a sense sphere, we only take, right, the Kama Vachara, right? The Kama Vachara. Now, within the Kama Vachara, right? So, Chamari, what we are speaking of is with regards to page number 248, guide to para 11, Chamari. Now,
Yes, Bhante.
yes. So within the Kama Vachara Bhumi, everything that performs or can go into performing a function. Mala asked us, why is it that direct knowledge, Abhinya, is present here? This is the chapter on Rupa. Think about it. Why is Abhinyana present here? Hemamali, please tell us what Abhinyana is.
That is the something
Wonderful.
powerful. Yeah.
The powers, Irdi.
Consciousness born of matter.
Give us an example of a Irdi, Hemamali.
That they can walk through the walls, or they can walk on water, or something like that.
Basically everything in a Superman movie, okay? Right. So, right now, take the Yamaka Mahapratihara, right? Yamaka Mahapratihara. Now, let's take a simpler one. Let's take walking on air. Walking on air is a part of that irdi that makes up the Abhinyana, is the Patavi Kasina, right? Is the Patavi Kasina. It is the Patavi Kasina which allows a person to perform that motion of being in the air. Now think about why Abhinyana is mentioned here.
Bhante,
Yes.
is it because without getting into that absorption, you can't perform that? So if you, it is coming under the governors of absorption. So it is a type of absorption, the direct knowledge chittas.
Yes.
And in order, if you want to walk on air, that is an action, and the body is having that movement. And in order to do that, which is then the kaya vinyati, right?
Yes, yes.
Bodily intimation.
Yes, but not the nail on the head, Chamari. Take Yamaka Mahapratihara. Take the twin miracle as an example. The Buddha attained to the Abhinyana, came out, determined, went back in, came out, produced air. I'm sorry, produced water. Right?
Yeah.
Then went back
Fire.
in Abhinyana, came back out, determined, went back in, came back out, produced fire. Did this simultaneously so far that it looked as if fire and water was coming out of each and every sort of pore of the Buddha's body. Now, isn't that Rupa?
Yeah.
That Rupa is produced because of the direct knowledge. That is why in Rupa chapter, we have that, right? Because it produces Rupas owing to that experience.
Yeah, I understand that, Bhante. But walking on air is also the Chitta not the Chitta Samuttana, Chitta Kiriya Vayu Dhatu. Without it, you won't go up.
Of course, but it is also the Patavi Dhatu. Brought out, it is also the Patavi Dhatu, the determination of the Patavi Dhatu brought about by the Abhidhamma determination consciousness.
So both would be there.
Absolutely, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So without the development of the Patavi Dhatu, you won't be able to walk on air.
Yeah, yes.
Right? Without the Aloka Dhatu, your Aloka Kasina, you won't be able to see in the dark. Right? Without the water kasina, you won't be able to produce water. Without the fire kasina, you won't be able to produce fire. Hence the reason, because those consciousness through the power and ability of development, they produce those phenomena of Rupa. Right? Even in ancient Chinese medicine, the ancient practitioners cultivated a lot of meditation, enabling them to burn cells specifically in those areas affected in the body. That was due to that meditation practice, the power of determination. Right? Now, all of us have the power of determination. But the power of determination becomes substantially more powerful when you have that element of samadhi, and because of the lack of restlessness and disruption to the said samadhi. Right? To the said samadhi. That is the reason why this abhinyana direct knowledge is there. Understood, Mala? Right? Good. Right? Did everyone else understand as well? Right? Why this abhinyana all of a sudden dropped out of the air? Because it is Rupa. Anything that produces Rupa. Right? Anything that produces Rupa. Okay. All right. The governors of absorption, etc. The maintainers are upholding of the body. No, we read that twice. Let's read it again. The maintenance or upholding of the bodily postures is a function of the states of consciousness. The 26 governors of absorption perform this function minimally by maintaining the body in a sitting, standing, or lying posture. By maintaining the body in a sitting, standing, or lying posture. The other 32 chittas mentioned, the determining consciousness, sense-create governors, and direct knowledge chittas, not only uphold the postures, but also activate bodily and vocal intimation. Is that clear now? Right? Wonderful. 13. Smile producing two. An ordinary worldling may smile or laugh with any of the four chittas rooted in greed and accompanied by joy, or with any of the four great wholesome chittas accompanied by joy. Right? Any of the four great wholesome chittas accompanied by joy. Again, an ordinary worldling may smile or laugh with any of the four chittas rooted in greed and accompanied by joy. We know that already. Or with any of the 4 great wholesome chittas accompanied by joy. We know that too. Trainees smile with 6 of these chittas, the 2 connected with wrong view being excluded. Arahants may smile with 1 of 5 chittas, the 4 joyful great functionals, and the rootless smile producing chitta, the rootless smile producing chitta. On how different types of consciousness produce material phenomena, see table 6.2. Why we are speaking about smile producing is because the the motion of smiling is to do with the Rupa, right? Is to do with the Rupa. Now, table 6.2. Consciousness as a cause of material phenomena. Consciousness as a cause of material phenomena. Let's take a look at this. Greed-rooted joy, right? Greed-rooted joy, altogether there are 4, right? Remember the 4? There are 4. Noeline, did you want to say something? You're muted, Noeline. Muted. Muted. Yes.
Can you hear me now, Bhante?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, where does Buddha come into this? Under Arahants? How does Buddha smile?
It is said that the Buddha smiles. It is said that the Buddha, now this is a there is a Theravada about this, you know. Funny that it comes Theravada, but it is Theravada means the seniors, the ancient bhikkhus have a debate about this, that Buddhas only smile with the smile producing, right? Buddhas only smile with the smile producing and not the others. While there's another school that maintains that the Buddha may smile with both the functional and the smile producing. But most believe that the Buddha smiles with the smile producing, right? So there is a debate within the commentaries about that question only. Yeah.
Okay, Bhante.
Because now, with regards to now, for example, if for those who do not believe in certain parts of the commentary or who chooses to take up to believe or trust in a certain part of what is mentioned, if they do not accept a certain part of the commentary and certain schools of this sort within Theravada or otherwise, also maintains now in modern figures, for example, such as Venerable Achan Cha or other venerables who are considered to be enlightened beings, they would say, okay, because of the smile producing being of a certain way, right? Because of smile producing acts. Now, smile producing and functional smile, smile producing smile and functional smile is 2 different smiles, right? Meaning, what I mean is the way the smile is different between these 2, right? The smile producing smile is more subtle compared to the other smiles which are produced by other consciousnesses. Taking into account, if we do go with the account of the smile producing being the only factor that arahants or enlightened beings would smile with, right? Then there is the question of okay, what about the monks considered to be arahants who smile with a full sort of blown smile, which monks like, great monks like Ajahn Chah had, right? Then sort of questioning, okay, would this be a way to say that these monks, although very profound and well respected and who have a stable practice in order, or might not be attained, right? So there is this debate within, people who look at the book. Yeah.
Thank you, Bhante.
All right. Now, looking at, yes, Padma. Padma.
No, Bhante, it's by mistake because I got my little granddaughter here. Sorry, yeah.
Maybe she has a question then. Okay, all right. Greed-rooted joy, right? Greed-rooted joy. Number of chittas, 4. Consciousness-born matter, postures, intimation, and smiling it can produce. Hatred, right? I'm sorry, equanimity. The only thing that it doesn't produce is smiling. Obvious, right? Because that sense of equanimity, right? Hate. There are 2 hate chittas, we know, right? The only thing that too doesn't produce is smiling, right? Is that chant understood? It produces consciousness, chitta, the Rupa produces. Posture, when you're mad, does it not affect the way that we sit, stand, or lie down? It does. Intimation, what we communicate, the way our voice changes, the way our lips move, how loud or soft we speak, dependent upon the person, right? Now, we cannot say that a person with hate will always shout. That is not so, right? Sometimes we know people who talk very softly when they are, raging inside. Not me, of course, I shout. I shout even when I'm happy, so, no brain about that. Some people, right? It depends, person to person, right? Person to person, it depends, right? Then we have sense consciousness, delusion. Delusion produces everything other than smiling. Receiving consciousness only produces consciousness born chitta the Rupa. Investigating chitta the Rupa.
Bhante,
Yes, Devika.
we didn't talk about sense consciousness with
Yes.
10.
Yes, sense consciousness 10. Sense consciousness does not produce chitta, postures, intimation, or smiling. Why? 1, 2, weak. 2, it only arises in that specific part of the sense faculty involved with what? Involved with the process of data collection, or allowing the process of seeing to happen. Remember? Hence, it does not produce any of that. Yeah? Okay. Right. Now, not even chitta the Rupa. Not even chitta the Rupa. Okay? It doesn't produce anything. Receiving, investigating produces chitta the Rupa. Right? Chitta the Rupa. 5-do adverting also produces chitta the Rupa. Chitta the Rupa. How does that happen? Any idea? With regards to the 5-door advert in Panchadwara Avajana. What is the Panchadwara Avajana? Yes, Noli. No? What is 5-door advert? Lakshman?
Bhante, you just like you see something only or hear something, but you don't actually take it in.
No.
Adverti means you just look at something, isn't it? With your senses, you.
Yes, the English word does, but the process of Panchadwara Avajana is different. Think about it. Now we know what a dwara is. We discussed it last week. Right?
Door. You open the door only.
Oh. Okay. This is what you call urage malu urage maligitila kapada, you know.
Bhante, you direct it towards object?
Yes, correct.
Avajana karana.
Yes. So, first of all, in the first chapter, remember, first chapter, we put it in the way of, you know, something like something that turns to the object, right? Turns to the object. But subsequently, in the later chapters, we spoke of it in a way where it's not the, yes, I mean, basically in the beginning, we say turning to the object. But what happens when we discussed where the Panchadwara Bhajana arises, then our opinion of the way the Panchadwara Bhajana works changed, if you remember. We discussed where does the Panchadwara Avajana arise? It arises in the respective Pasadaru, in the respective faculty, in the respective sense organ, right? Panchadwara Avajana arises in the respective sense organ. So if there is something to see, it arises at the eye. If there is something to feel on my shoulder, it will arise at the sensory basis of which loves the sense of touch. If there is something to smell, it will arise at the nose, right? That then changed our view of how Panchadwara Bhajana arises, right? Now, Panchadwara Bhajana, we are speaking of it wholly, entirely in connection to the Rupa itself. So it is not the mental consciousness which sees. It is the mental consciousness that directs. Directs what? Directs the mind towards that specific object through that respective door. It does not perform the function of the door. Just imagine, there are 5 doors, completely dark room. When someone enters or someone is at the door, there is a light that arises. This light lights up the doorway so that we see who is at the doorway. One light on while the others are switched off. When there is someone else at another door frame or doorway, that lights up and then it switches off. And then another one lights up and it switches off. Then another one lights up. And this process happens so fast with attention that we feel like it's happening all at the same time. Where we hear, smell, taste, and feel all at the same time. But that's only because it happens so fast. Right? That is the function of Panchadvara Abhajana. It does not perform the function of seeing, it only performs one thing, which is adverting to that. Creating or allowing the mind to now be aware of that position. Do you understand? Are we reminded of what Panchadvara Abhajana is then? Yeah, that is Panchadvara Abhajana. When we take Panchadvara Abhajana, right, it only has conscious born matter, Chittada Rupa. Not Kammaja Rupa, Chittada Rupa. Is that understood? Right? Chittada Rupa. All right. Can someone say how, which part of that Panchadvara Bhajana story is the Chittada Rupa then? To take it, to make it all the way clearer. Lakshman, can you please?
No, Bhante, I don't know. Sorry, I don't know.
Okay. Devika, you put your hand. Yeah. Yes, of course.
I think it's because no, I was going to say, Bhante, it's Fido adverting, because you're looking at all these chittas, consciousnesses, so fast, and it doesn't, it's just born of matter, because you take in quickly and you realize, how can I, you're looking at something and getting it into your mind so fast, it's just adverting and it's not going to create anything, but you absorb what is being seen by all the, what is the intake from all these pancha dwaras.
No.
Correct? You just get it and you don't produce anything. It's the fact that you get it into your mind.
No, yeah. No. The Panchadvara Bhajana doesn't go that deep.
Okay.
It's a very,
just you get it.
It is a very minute, small process, right? But a very integral process, but it is not that deep. I mean, it doesn't go through so much, right?
It's just seeing and absorbing it, just for that instance.
No, there is no seeing or absorbing. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
There is neither. There is no seeing, no observe. I'm sorry, no observing in Panchadvara Bhajana. Anyone else? Example.
Bhante, can you repeat that question again?
With regards to this chart, with regards to how we explained, we went through what Panchadvara Bhajana is. How it says that Panchadvara Bhajana doesn't have postures, intimation, or smiling. It only arises or causes the rising of conscious born Chittadarupa. Where is the Chittadarupa? මොකද්ද මේ චිත්තද රූපය කියන්නේ? මොන ඒ පංචද්වාර වචන process එකේ මොන අවස්ථාවේදී මේ චිත්තද රූපයක් හටගන්නේ? ඒ චිත්තද රූපය කියන්නේ කුමක්ද?
ඒ කියන්නේ ඇහෙන් ගන්න රූපයයි කනින් ඇහෙන එකයි
එච්චර
all that's relevant to the එච්චර යන්න ඕනේ.
එච්චර දෙයක් කරන්නේ නැහැ පංචද්වාර වචන. Miri?
Bhante,
Yes, Chamari.
Bhante, Panchadwara Vajana or the 5 door adverting is the chitta. So that chitta arises. That itself is a chitta.
Okay. What is the Rupa then?
The sensitive matter that comes in.
You're there. I know you're there.
Bhante, is it the object actually?
No, it is not. The Panchadwara Vajana doesn't see the object.
It arises in that prasada rupa, in the relevant prasada rupa.
Yes, Miri. The activation of the Prasada Rupa is the Chitta Rupa. If we take those series of doors that we spoke about, right, and one doorway illuminates one after the other, that aloka that illuminates is the Rupa. Do you get it? It doesn't see anything. The aloka doesn't see anything. You might see it, but the aloka doesn't see the object. Right? Just as if there has to be a spark in that respective sense door for now that door to work. That spark itself is the Rupa. That is the Chitta Rupa. Is that clear now?
The word should be Chitta Rupa. Okay.
Right? So that Rupa, the Panchadwara Vajana doesn't see, it only activates. Right? It only activates. Activates with what? Focus. A dware kerehi avadhaniya yomu kirime thamai panchadwara avardhane කියන වචනේ හැදෙන්නේ. Right? තමන්ගේ ඒ කෙනෙක්ගේ මනස ඒ ద్వාරයේ කෙර යොමු කිරීම. The focus, that focus illuminates, empowers now that object to be taken. That object is taken, remember, for something to be seen or heard or smelt or tasted or felt. Mansikara is an important factor, right? Remember, Mansikara, that Mansikara arises because of the Panchadwara Avajana.
Avajana. Vachana දැනන් හිටියේ නෑ ස්වාමීන් වහන්සේ කියන්න හරියට.
You can say Sinhala, Demala or English. Right?
Yeah, I didn't know how to express it properly.
Yeah, all right. But I hope it's clear now. Right? I hope
Yes.
it's okay. Now, 8:33. Shall we call it a day then? Yeah? Okay. So we will go to the chart. We'll go to the chart next week. So next week we'll be having it on Monday. No Sutta class tomorrow, please. Okay. No Sutta class. I promise I will have the Sutta class next week. I promise I'll have it next week. I promise I'll have it. All right.
Okay. So what will be the subject for Sutta class?
I will have it.
Ravinasi, you had.
Yeah.
No, I remember there was something you were going to talk about